All right, welcome to the Socality Show. My name is Scott Bakken, and I'm excited today for today's show because we're going to be talking all about email marketing, trends, what's going on, and how you can build your brand and your business by connecting with your audience at a deeper level. And I've got Mike and Mitzi Payne with us here today.
What's up?
They are the founders of Arcade Studios here in Calgary, Alberta, which is a digital marketing agency, and they are crushing it. They are part of our mastermind through the Socality membership the other night, and they dropped some heat. You guys dropped some heat.
That was so fun.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah, we had a blast.
Did you have a blast?
It was so fun. It was so interactive.
Got to see people's faces.
Yeah.
They asked good questions.
Great questions.
Yeah, we loved it.
Yeah, and also you had such a well thought out presentation, and just even I was taking notes and learning so much, and just there's so much I think as creators that I'm really just so excited to talk about, because we have relied so much on our social platforms and it's like the reach and the followers, but there's so many ways to build your brand or your business outside of social media. And I think we've looked at social media as kind of the one road, but it's part of the whole picture.
For sure.
And with what you do with creators and brands is you really put together strategies.
Yeah.
You know, you're working with us on Socality when it comes to strategies and thinking about that whole like funnel and user journey, which I think is so exciting because there's so much more ways to own your audience. And so before we dive in though, I want to introduce you. We got Mike and Mitzi.
Hi.
Yep. And you're married.
Yeah, we're business partners and life partners.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Works out pretty well.
What's that like?
It's great.
It's great.
Lots of people ask us that question. And really, I think like we've thrived that way. We met in the same lane anyway, and we both admired that each other were driven and had a vision for our businesses, and so it was just this natural convergence. And then I think what's set us up for success since then is just being really clear on our roles. So it's not like we're both trying to be the same person to our company. We both are just showing up in our strengths, compensating for each other's weaknesses, and then we give each other room to make decisions in our own lanes and trust each other to like do a good job.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you're married or in partnership with an entrepreneur, you're in business with them. So we were informal business partners, and then both building our own businesses separately, and decided it makes sense to do it together intentionally. So it's great.
Right. It's a fine line because some couples have different work ethics.
Yeah.
They have different ideas, but you seem that you have a good synergy that when you come home, you're able to like shut work off.
Well, it's funny because kids help with that. They don't let you talk. Like, I feel like even if we want to talk about like what we're going to do for dinner, our kids do not let us talk. Like, they just need to talk to us or ask us questions. But I think we've learned over time what we need from, space from the business. So there are times when we're on a date and we just like talk about business the whole time because it's exciting and we have ideas and we have dreams. And there's times where we're like, I can't talk about this tonight. Can we talk about anything else? And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. And of course, for those listening, you guys met through Socality. So we kind of always, it's kind of our, a little excitement for us because we bring people together, bring community together, but we're also a bit of a matchmaker at Socality. So if you're looking for love, you need to make sure you're following Socality and come to an event.
Absolutely.
But you met in Calgary.
We didn't meet in Calgary.
Oh, you didn't meet.
We were both at the Calgary event.
Okay.
She skipped the session that I was speaking at.
Yeah, I was like,
She's like, I don't have
time to be a leader.
You played hard to get.
It's true.
Well, I didn't.
You're like, if I don't show up, he will know it.
No, we didn't know each other then.
Okay.
We totally missed each other at the Calgary event.
Okay.
Yeah, but then we converged in Portland, and it was awesome. And we didn't really keep in touch that much after that immediately, but then we crossed paths again 6 months later through friends. And we're reminiscing on the Portland event, and then started talking more, and the rest is history.
You're like, remember how we were riding on the beach at Cannon Beach? We were taking photos and capturing the moment.
I actually skipped the outing.
Did you?
I was at the beach. Yeah.
When we got evacuated because the storm came in.
Yeah, it was windy, wasn't it?
It was windy.
It was such a good vibe, though.
It was amazing.
Was so
the
fun.
photos were awesome.
The photos were unreal.
They were.
Yeah, the broken umbrella.
I was after the fact. I wished I had gone, so I got the.
I can't
photos,
believe you skipped.
I know, what a dummy.
What a dummy. Oh, well, you still won.
Yeah.
You fell in love.
I came out on top.
You came out on top.
I got a good business partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now you've established an incredible business. So tell us more about Arcade. Exactly. If I come to you as a client and I'm just saying, I'm coming to Arcade, what are the services you're helping me with?
Yeah, well, I think telling the story is often something that I do when we're talking to prospective clients, because it's kind of integral to what we've become. But my first agency was more about branding and visual identity and web design, and hers was more about social media, as like Instagram was really big and new on the scene, and even like paid social and ad campaigns and the data side of things. So we were both good at different things, but for the same types of brands. And so for a while, as we started dating and like even just building our businesses at the same time, we would do projects together or like refer clients to each other. And that worked really well. But then eventually, once we got married and decided to be in Calgary, and we started to notice a bit of a trend of like the bigger brands that we wanted to work with, one of us would be part of in the mix for that work. And then we'd often get shortlisted, but then inevitably overlooked for the bigger agency,
right?
And it wasn't necessarily that they were better. It was just a perception thing. So over time we started to think maybe there's something here. Maybe if we're doing work together anyway, as two small teams, maybe we just need to show up bigger. And so we decided to merge our companies in 2018 and rebrand as Arcade and be strictly digital. We wanted to have a niche in terms of our service. And at the time we were really focused on e-commerce brands, because that was like the wave in 2018 was D2C, consumer packaged goods, Shopify. All of that was really fresh and exciting. And even drop shipping was a big thing at the time. We didn't work with a lot of those, but that contributed to the trend. And so we really cut our teeth on e-commerce. And then through the pandemic, we still continue to work with e-com brands, but I think the pandemic gave us diversification opportunities with the types of clients that we worked with. So had some really exciting opportunities in entertainment, like Some Good News with John Krasinski. That introduced us to Warner Brothers and other like bigger entities like that. And also just allowed us to think differently about media, like beyond just like thinking about it more macro, outside of just like, what are you posting on Instagram, more about how are you communicating a message or telling a story, or making it less blatantly a call to action or driving a purchase, and more about like a cultural conversation or speaking to someone's emotions and things like that. So it's kind of like content through an entertainment lens. Then we also got into more like food and beverage and retail and stuff like that too, which has been really fun. So you asked what we do. We're a creative agency that specializes in digital marketing strategy, content production, and distribution, which is a very broad way to say like managing social and email and paid campaigns for brands.
Right. And you've had some success stories with some great clients. Recently, you've worked with something called The Leap.
Yes.
Thinkific, and that was a huge success. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you talk about that.
Yeah, so Thinkific came to us. They're a tech company. They're basically the infrastructure for building courses. So I don't know, a lot of creators can create courses and around their expertise or things like that. So they came to us and they wanted to build a media company around early stage creators. And so we went to TikTok, started there. We were posting every single day. Then we evolved into Instagram as well. We started their email list from scratch, and we developed a newsletter that really brings value to anyone in the creator economy. We just felt this opportunity for creators right now is so wide, and we wanted to make sure that we give them as much resources and information as possible. So yeah, it's fun because we got to start all these channels from scratch. And today there's Instagram and TikTok has a combined audience of over 100,000 followers. They have an email list of over 75,000 subscribers. And that was all because of, the efforts that we did of creating content on TikTok that's valuable, and we published every single day. And huge props to our social team for doing that. And then our newsletter, which we've really poured so much effort into to make sure it's really valuable and interesting and engaging. It's really hard as a brand to get anyone's attention these days. They're competing with, creators and influencers and TV and everything else that you're consuming. So for a brand to have that kind of reach from zero is really hard to do today. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done for that client.
Yeah, and we also reacted to some trends that we were seeing as we grew. One of those is that people are tending more towards closed communities and direct messaging. So we did also pivot the email subscribers and social audience into a closed community called Creator Group Chat. That was about 500 creators and gives them access to each other to share resources with each other, but also more facilitated things like Ask Me Anythings with experts and creators that are maybe farther along in the process than some of the others. And then we also at the end of the first 2 years, they launched their first digital product. And so we were able to use the email list and the audience that we built to build a wait list and anticipation for that, and then launch within the first few months with 15,000 users on that new product. So
that's amazing. Yeah. One thing that's interesting that you just said is, Adam Mosseri, who's the CEO of Instagram, obviously they just announced they've updated the DM features with a whole bunch of features. They're saying that I find it hard to believe, but I mean, I guess that if they're on the other end of the data, they say that people are doing less in-feed posting and really using, stories and DMs more to connect. Is this something that's happened? Like, I guess if he says it is. I sometimes feel like I'm being sold a bill of goods. But do you see that? Like, what is the benefit? Why would people do more DMing and, closed communities versus wider, broadcasting?
Yeah, I think people want a more private space to connect. We actually do this practice internally at an arcade called Scan Club. It was spearheaded by our amazing creative director, Alyssa Uhas. She is a futurist, and she kind of trained us in this futurist methodology of identifying signals that could lead to trends. And, us working in digital marketing, where there's so many platforms and strategies and approaches, it was really important for us to not always be so reactive, but try to think ahead and on behalf of our clients, but also for ourselves. And so one thing that we have been watching, and we created a trend report, which I'm sure we'll start talking about shortly here, but is that people are looking for closed communities. Like, I think the pandering and the clout chasing of our social media and Instagram patterns, people are getting tired of that, and they're really just wanting a closer connection. And people are more isolated than ever before. It could be a post-COVID impact, but people are really looking for a deeper connection. And so closed communities, whether it's on Instagram through a DM, or if it's on a closed community like a Geneva or Discord or something like that, is what people are really craving. So it doesn't surprise me at all that more people are spending time in DMs, and they're trying to connect and share things privately now, just to get deeper into it. It's not all doesn't all have to be so public.
I think part of it is safety too. Especially over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen the comment sections get more polarized, even ruthless.
They have not been awesome.
Even abusive. And cancel culture is a real thing. So, but I would say that I think the trend there is more for individuals. That's how people are consuming and sharing content and actually sharing their true opinion. Wouldn't necessarily say that brands are getting away from feed posting, but I think brands are definitely recognizing that Instagram Stories needs to have its own strategy separate from the feed. And then feed-based content needs to be positioned less for just the quick engagement and more for retention and shareability and savability. Yeah. So we're really measuring more and more on what we call deep engagements versus just your typical likes or engagement rate.
Likes don't matter.
No.
I think they should just get rid of them.
Yeah.
People, it's not even a habit anymore. Yeah. People they're scrolling, they're saving, they're sharing, they're not even. Remember, our age was all about the double tap. The double tap's done.
Totally. Yeah. It's just this useless metric.
It really is. Sure. Yeah. It's not a real.
I don't know if it's a signal to the algorithm still, maybe, and that's.
I think it is, but it's on the lower level for sure.
Yeah.
But I think if you have the save feature, then the feature is kind of pointless.
Watch time and saving and sharing.
Yeah. Watch time is definitely interesting. That's something we track as well. I think it doesn't work for every brand, but one thing that we've talked about with some brands, depending what they're measuring as their higher priority for these channels, is what we've just come to call time with brand. So you obviously want to know average watch time, because that is a signal for how quality and engaging your content is. But then based on the volume of posting and the video views that you're getting against watch time, you get overall just the amount of time your audience has spent with your brand. And that can be a metric for awareness and brand equity on these channels. So that's been an interesting thing to look at as well.
Yeah. And I mean, people are listening to this going, okay, this sounds great. Marketing, digital agency, but you got a big team. How many people are working with you?
Good question. I think we got about 12 full time,
right?
And then a great roster of contractors and like part-time employees that fill different needs as well.
Right. And congratulations on that, because I think that's good for people to hear that you've got a full operation, you've built a business. So, part of people listening, not only do we want to give them the skills, but understand that as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as creators, scaling a team, growing a team, having the right people on the bus really helps it go forward, because you guys couldn't do this on your own. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's huge. It's so important. I think for me personally, it's been like one of the most valuable and fulfilling parts of doing this. Like building a business, as lots of your listeners know, is hard. It's grueling. It's like you're always on, you're always working. But I think the fruit of all of that has been the team that we get to do it with, and the privilege of being able to pick those people and like handpick those people is just really cool. So it's been super fun and rewarding. It comes with its own set of challenges.
Yes,
but
always.
Overall, it's great.
But yeah, we were just talking about this today, actually. We've been trying to step back and make some like bigger plans for our agency and like grow intentionally in a direction. Mm-hmm. And we were saying today, like, we feel like we've really been lucky enough to get best in class people on our team. And I think part of that is no shade to Calgary. We love being a Calgary agency, but from the minute we became Arcade, we set our sights on having a global presence and not measuring ourselves against our neighbor agencies like down the street, but more against the ones like in the world that we really aspire to be compared to. And since then, now we work with a lot of Calgary brands too, but for a while it was brands in other places. And I think that was part of what allowed us to really get access to the type of people we wanted to work with as well. And then we've always, from the beginning, it's been a value of ours to have a strong employer brand and pay better than other agencies and really make sure that our employees have what they need to have a great life outside of work, because agency can be perceived as so toxic, and a lot of it is. But we've really tried to fight against the tide with that.
Cultivate a good atmosphere.
Yeah.
But for people listening that go, okay, let's just talk about the creator first. Okay. They're a creator. They got an Instagram account. They got a website. They've got their business. What kind of things should they be? Let's talk about Scan Report. How would that relate to them when it comes to how they're approaching their audience?
For sure. Yeah. So for our trend report that we created is basically we outline like 5 key behavioral trends that we're seeing. And these behavioral trends can help inform like how you approach content and your marketing or what you're posting and sharing in general. So one thing we've already talked about is close friends only. So thinking about, those people that are following you, that you always see their name, they're always maybe commenting on your posts, or they're always like subscribing to your newsletter, or they're always just like, you know that they're the diehards and they support what you're doing no matter what it is and what season you're doing it in. And for those people, you want to really think about how you can like create more one-on-one valuable connection with them to really bring them together in a smaller community, and also allow them to kind of like connect. And what's the through thread between them, and what is it that they're looking for, just to go in a bit nicher and smaller with those people. That's a big one.
Yeah, and I think practically in terms of like the practice of scanning and like just having a posture of like knowing what's happening and what's changing for creators is really important. We put Scan Club as a newsletter together, as well as the trend report as a resource for those people, so that they don't have to necessarily feel like they're responsible for having this practice on their own. We definitely want to empower them if they have the time and the ability to do that. But I can see how as an individual creator, that would be really overwhelming to do on your own. So we have a team. We have the luxury of having a futurist on our team. And so we would love for creators to be
What's a futurist? Explain.
It's a master's program. Basically, you can get a master's degree to
it's
be
like a real
futurist.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can,
wow. It's not just a made up name.
A futurist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never heard of this.
I've never heard of. Well, like I've heard of it, but I didn't know what it was until we met.
I thought it was like a self-proclaimed title.
Yeah,
Totally. That's what I thought.
Too, yeah.
Okay, but it's a real.
But it's a practice. It's like it's basically it trains you to like look at what's going around you in a certain specific industry and identify signals, which is kind of what we walked through last night. Is like a signal can be anything that shows shows movement, whether it's accelerating or decelerating. So it could be a new technology, it could be a new approach or strategy, or it could be like a new patent or a law or something. It's showing movement in this area. So futurists, in our context, it's around digital marketing and social and content, but there's futurists that exist in like the healthcare space or politics. Yeah. And they're basically focused on identifying moments that are happening and thinking critically about what kind of future could point to. So when you pull these signals together, there needs to be more than one that can contribute or point to a different future. And that's a possible trend prediction. And then also, there's not just the acceleration of potential trends, but also the deceleration of trends. So what's the other movement side are things going down. Like, for example, AI is a huge, it's here to stay. It's not even a trend anymore. It's just part of, our lives as a driver. But earlier, when you're starting to see like patents or technologies or ChatGPT come out, those are little signals that are pointing to something that's happening and movement that's happening. So Alyssa, she's trained to like the methodology of all this, and she's taken some of that training and helped put it into our internal practices so that we can better not predict the future, but better like just think proactively about what's going to happen in our industry.
Yeah. So we talked about that more in the mastermind. So if you're not a member already, you should become one.
100%.
Get access to these masterminds. But like a signal, when we say signal, that can be anything from an article to a tweet to a conversation to a meme, but it just signifies movement, like Mitzi said. And then a single signal doesn't predict a trend, but as you start to see patterns and signals that compound on each other or reinforce each other, that's where you start to be able to say, okay, this is moving in the direction of a trend. And then for us, the reason that we do it is because it allows us to actually future-proof the strategies that we're producing for brands like Socality or other clients that we work with, so that we're considering ahead of time the way that these markets might be changing or behaviors might be changing. So that all is incredibly useful to a creator.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to take on the burden yourself of learning how to find signals and track them and connect them into what could be trends. All you got to do is subscribe to Scan Club.
Right. And you'll do it for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I do find, like, because I watch TikTok and all that, and I get the trends, and they say, watch over this, or this is on the rise, or this is over now, and this is what, it does feel like I'm aggregating some trends, and it's hard to know what's opinion and what's, what's actually happening. But I do find that I'm always listening to, like, what's the new thing or how people are approaching it. They're like, curated content is out and it's all about the, on the phone or, and stuff like this. So as a creator, I'm trying to do that. And I guess, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, that is such a hard job to do.
Yeah.
Like a creator, I have so much respect for creators because they're taking the role that we have in an agency as a single person. They're the writer, the copywriter, the director, the cinematographer, the talent, the editor, and then the like social media manager / expert. Like, it's so hard to do all those jobs. Yeah. And so we, like, knowing that we have all the demands of being in this space, like, we just wanted to be able to really have a resource, not just for us internally, like selfishly, but also for other people, so they don't have to feel like they have to be the expert in all those areas.
Yeah. And the luxury of scanning is that it's less reactive. So what you're talking about is seeing trends as they materialize on TikTok and then trying to react to them as quickly as possible so you're not too late. The beauty of scanning is that you start to see those before they're truthfully a trend, and you can then be early.
Yeah.
So for brands or businesses that are selling a product, are they looking at shopping habits? Are they looking at spending habits? Like, what are they looking for?
You're trying to look as widely as possible. So yes, spending habits, behaviors, but also you're trying to look at tech. You're trying to look at politics. You're trying to look at sociological norms. You're trying to look at like what's polarizing versus what's unifying. Like all of those things are things that we need to keep an eye on. And then we hone in and we get closer as patterns emerge. So not everything we see in politics or not everything we see in tech will directly influence what we believe about fashion, but some of it could. Right. It could change the way you buy products online, for example, or try on outfits, or we even like one trend that we're seeing is like a crazy trend in how much people are returning products that they bought online. Like I think it was like $750 billion.
Yeah, and I saw that a lot of people are stopping with free returns.
Yeah, and it's killing.
Is it because it's killing businesses and the environment?
Yeah,
$750 billion in the U.S. alone
in returns
last year.
Yeah, so that's a signal for sure. We've talked about that on our team. And we think about like what could happen if this accelerates. One, retailers could start charging you for returns, you know, for one easy, no more free returns. But also like maybe there could be a reality one day where you can buy a membership to say like Zara, Club Monaco, and you can say, I'm a premium customer here. I'm not only going to shop, but I want the change room at home option membership, and I'll pay you monthly to cover the cost of returns so that I can have free returns or something like that. And for some people that might be worth it, but trying to think like, okay, this is happening right now. What could happen next? You know, how will that impact a consumer, but also the retailer?
No, that makes sense. So you're approaching brands. So part of like, I come to you as a brand and go, help us really dream. And you're like, okay, here's some trends that are happening. Here's some signals. Yeah. We think you should introduce this kind of subscription model to your customers, which will, you know, alleviate the loss of the returns and make it more economical for you, but at the same time, give you a little leading edge, like a little bit of a club. Yeah. You know, because I love being loyalty and VIP at places.
Totally. Yeah. Who doesn't? Who doesn't love that? Then I think when we think about creators, those who are listening, like, I think for them, like, there's so many resources for the micro trends, like long form versus short form, like those kind of things. There's a lot of resources, and honestly, like, sure, there's like trends in that space, but nothing's guaranteed. You're testing and trying all of that. What we're doing is more macro behavioral trends. So like, how do people feel right now, and how does that feeling inform how you should think about content? So one of the trends that we're watching too is that most people are lonely and exhausted and tired. So how does that inform or impact how you show up as a creator? Comfort creators are on the rise, and if that matches who you are in terms of the kind of content you're creating, if it's lifestyle kind of content and you can fit within a comfort creator, like, now is the time to do that kind of content. So it's just like thinking less about like what's my real cover and more about bigger picture. How are people feeling right now, and how can I meet them where they are?
That's very interesting. I like that term, comfort creator. Yeah, maybe I'll become a comfort creator. You should. Right?
Yeah, so get comfort creator.
Like living room vibes.
Yeah, it's basically like someone that you watch, like you have a comfort show. Yeah. Like for us, it's The Office. Like we can just watch that show and, you know, just it
feels like home.
Yeah, it's like it's like comforting. It's the one that we would choose to watch. But then there's comfort creators, like people who watches YouTubes, and it's like, this is my comfort creator that I like to watch.
More passive listening.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Now let's talk about the sexy stuff.
Oh,
email marketing.
Okay, let's do it. I love it.
Sexy time with email marketing. It's one thing that people don't think is sexy, but it's actually vital. I remember speaking to someone years ago, and they said your database is your gold. And I remember like, oh yeah, they're like, build a database. And now I see the value of it, because we live in this world of an algorithm, you know, where we post and we're expected that our content would reach, but it doesn't reach. And we're missing so much direct, you know, relationship with our consumers or our audience. And so let's talk about email marketing. Yeah, let's do it. It's more than just, you know, as a creator, as a brand, it's more than just setting up email and MailChimp and linking insights. There's an actual strategy. So can you give me like a 1, 2, 3, like if I'm just starting out and I don't even have an email, like give me a 1, 2, 3 of what I should be doing.
If you don't have an email list, use this podcast as the first sign that you need to start one today. If you're building out your audience on social media, and there's no shame to that, you just have to understand that you're doing it on rented space. And the algorithm, like you mentioned, it will fail us. Like even if you had, like we all know this, if you have 10,000 followers, your organic reach might be 3 or 4%. They're not all going to see your content that you're posting. So email is an opportunity to own your audience and actually connect with them directly, no matter what algorithm is doing for you that day. So, and I think it happened this week too, that like Instagram went down for 30 minutes. Yesterday. Yeah. And those, you know, that could happen again. And there was even talks for a while about TikTok getting banned, which I'm sure they'll renew every election period. So which is coming up soon. So the fact is that like what you've done in these social platforms, and we all love them, and they're an important part of like our whole marketing funnel, is just not yours. So making sure that like you start the process of starting an email list, and there's a few ways that you can do that. Like you can start by thinking about your audience and getting them to sign up for a newsletter list, using social media and kind of transferring your audience from social to email. And then it's also about thinking about like, what kind of emails do you want to send? And there's a few different kinds of emails.
Yeah, there's a few different kinds of emails, but I'd also, before we get into those, maybe I would say that rather than just viewing email as an additional channel, because we're not by any means saying to abandon social media.
Totally.
Social media absolutely is crucial still for brands, for creators. And it's where a lot of people still consume the most content, but we just have less control. Mm-hmm. And so we really like to encourage people to view email as how to take your relationship with your audience to the next level. The people that desire more from you, that have more affinity for you and your content, that want more access or want more value or even want more like contextualized or customized recommendations or insights or conversations, or to be part of a smaller group. Like maybe they have the opportunity to engage with each other in some ways as well. So we like to view email as different rather than just additional.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you're going to actually get people to join.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just going to be spinning your tires. You're going to.
It feels like, oh, you already said this on your podcast and your Instagram post. It's no different.
Exactly.
Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Like it's got to feel separate.
Yeah.
It's got to feel like, so email is long form. So it should feel more intimate and deeper.
So, okay. So I set up my email and I have a website and I put, how do I capture signups?
Signups.
Yeah. How do I get people to be fired up about me as a creator or brand?
Well, I think maybe we'd talk about the three different types of email first, just to get the right context.
Of course.
But we should definitely answer that question. So there's three types of emails. One is email marketing, which I think most brands do. And that's the annoying
like a retail,
kind.
like you're 50% off, buy now.
Like the only reason they're sliding into your inbox is because they want you to buy something.
Right.
They want your money.
They want a single click.
Right.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like though there's a purpose.
I fall victim sometimes.
And we like them.
We like them. So, if it's a brand we love, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've been waiting for that sweater to go on sale.
And people are picky about what brands they let into their inbox.
Okay.
So already you have permission to be there. But what we want to be careful about with email marketing or email campaigns like that is to not be abusive of that access. So send them sometimes, but be choosy about when you send those. And then in addition to being choosy, we also need to find other ways to add value through that email channel so that we're breaking up the amount of campaigns and promotions. One way to do that is through newsletters. Newsletters are more of an art form. It's less of like a marketing tactic and more of a way for us, like we were talking about, like make it different, like give additional value, give deeper insight, give earlier access to new things, so that email audience feels special. And they should be scratching their heads when they get your newsletter in their inbox, wondering how in the world they got that for free.
Wow.
And so that's really the way that we think about newsletters. And
we got to put work in this.
Yeah. And we also try to avoid with newsletters having just like a snippet of a longer piece of content and like pushing people somewhere else to get the whole thing.
Yes.
Because that feels like you're kind of bait and switching people.
For sure.
So it has been a tactic in the past, but we steer our clients away from that and try to say, pack as much of the fullness and the completeness of this value into this singular email as you can.
Right.
Of course, have a call to action to go somewhere else if you want to, but really they should be able to experience this newsletter and be satisfied.
Right.
And then the third type of email is automations. Some people call them flows. It's most common in e-commerce, but if you're a creator, maybe you have a course or some sort of digital product, it's likely that you could benefit from automations. And sometimes I think people react to automations and say, well, that feels deeply impersonal. Like it's just filling in someone's name and then sending it to them because they took another action. It can sound robotic, but I think if you approach it properly, it actually becomes really intuitive and customized to that person's needs and experiences and the actions that they've already taken. So we see that in like really typical practitioners, like your eye doctor or your dentist. Like it's based on when you last saw them and what procedure you had done. Was it just a cleaning? Was it a root canal? Do you need glasses? Is it time to refill your prescription? But you can also think about it more creatively as a creator too, where there's maybe different types of subscribers that you have and they're subscribing to you for different things, and you can create cadences and unique information for them that shows up at the right time in the right way. Without you having to write a completely unique newsletter, for example.
Right. So those are three styles of emails and how on a monthly basis, how often should we be sending them? Like, what's a good rhythm?
Yeah, so it's hard to say. It really depends on your newsletter list, how often you should be sending emails. I don't see any use case that makes sense to send more than weekly. And I don't see a use case where it makes sense to send less than monthly. So anything between a monthly or weekly, I feel like is a great healthy spot. You want to make sure that like your unsubscribe rate is still pretty low, no matter how frequent you're sending. So for example, if it's pretty high, then I would consider maybe sending it to a bit less. So yeah, it really depends on how big your list size is, and what kind of email like marketing you're sending. So like Mike mentioned, those email campaigns where it's like a single click designed to get you to do one sort of purchase or whatever, we don't want to send those as often. But a newsletter, if someone signed up to get a recurring newsletter from you based on a certain topic, those are so appropriate to happen every week. So it really depends on the type of email that you're going to do.
Right.
And then automations you set up front and you can leave them for a while. And
like a welcome email is a great automation that everyone should do.
Yeah.
Right. And with the capture, just encouraging people to sign up.
Right.
Like, how do you do that? Like, I know lead magnets, but what's the best kind of lead magnet?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it really depends on your audience. Like, what is something that you feel like you could offer for free in exchange for an email address that doesn't put anything else that you have, like doesn't undermine any of the cost of those things. So if you're a photographer, it could be like presets or something like that. Like, it has to be valuable enough that people are inspired to sign up. But it really depends on what kind of creator you are.
But you want there to be as little barrier to like using that resource as possible. Right. It shouldn't be something that it feels like, oh, I got this lead magnet, or I got this resource, but I have to put in so much work to make it useful. Mm-hmm. So like, I think the presets is a great example. Say you're a finance creator, it could be a budget template on Notion, something that I can literally set it up in 5 minutes, plug in my numbers, and I have a budget now. And
then you can create a paid version. Sorry to interrupt you. A paid version of that budget for $7 if people want to upgrade. Think about what other products that you have that you want to offer people, or digital products, and like what's the entry point to all of that, and how can you show value with that single like lead magnet, and then multiply that value with your next product.
Mm-hmm. Another way beyond lead magnets is because you can leverage your organic social following already, and lead magnets make it easier, but that's not the only way. You can also just communicate really clearly what the reason is. Like, what is the benefit of them to be part of that email? For a lot of brands, especially if they're product based, or if there's like any cycle to their content, is early access. So okay, you're a follower on Instagram, you like what I have to say on my reels, but I actually have a course, or I actually have a collection of products that release, or I'm actually dropping some new presets next month, and my email list is going to get it first, and there's a limited supply, Right. So there's a reason beyond an immediate resource to be part of that community. Or maybe there's community opportunities like some sort of closed group or webinar or workshop where email subscribers get that access and social followers don't.
How are we judging a successful email list? What are the metrics we're looking for?
Yeah, so we want to look at open rates. Like, what is basically just engagement. So that includes open rates, click-through rates, low unsubscribes, low spam rates, things like that. That data really tells us so much. So yeah, those are the main metrics to me. And if you see a list that's growing, that just means like your marketing for that list growth is doing well. But there's nothing wrong with a small list. I want to say email marketing is almost like your list size is like the opposite of your followers. Like, in social media, the more followers you have, the better. But for email marketing, the smaller amount of engaged followers, the better. So even I've seen for us we would sacrifice a list of an email list for the health of that email list, and actually cut those people out based on engagement. So if there's a smaller segment of people who are always opening your email, always clicking on those are to us a truer measurement of that email list. And if that size is only say 40% of your master size, that's okay. I'd even go even tighter. It's like 30% of your master size, but for sure those people are all like they're there because they want to be there. They love the content, things like that. So the data really just tells you everything.
It's quality over quantity.
Right. Sure. So now we're talking, you mentioned a word earlier, distribution. And I think that's a good word for brands, creators to hear about reaching your audience. You know, you've got your social media, you've got your website, you've got your email list. Can we talk about digital spend? You know, when should we be spending money on ads on Instagram and Facebook? And do we have to spend a lot? You know, it depends. I imagine it depends what you're selling, but how do you know like the ROI on that? What should be creators looking at before they do some digital spend?
I would say the place to start is like, do you feel like you're hitting a ceiling organically? But before you jump to a conclusion based on that, I would also then reflect on the quality of your content. So I'd look at performance metrics for your social content, for example, or even your email content. And if you're not really growing in like reach or audience size, but you're seeing positive symptoms in your engagement, like we talked about watch time on social. We talked about deep engagements. Like, are people sharing these? Are they sending them? And then you just talked about engagement on email. If those things look good, but you're not growing, then maybe that's an opportunity to look at paid spend, like paid social or search engine marketing or something like that, because that really allows you to then take what you know to be quality and scale it and reach more people and reach the right type of people, because you have targeting parameters and you can get really specific. And the other power of your email list is that you can leverage that email list for new audiences through paid channels.
Oh, okay.
So you can take your email list and ingest it into Meta or TikTok.
I didn't know that.
And then create what's called a lookalike audience, where the platform will create a brand new audience of new people that share the same geographic and like behavioral tendencies of your existing list. So it's a warmer starting point for your
to market your social,
to serve ads to.
So where are we doing that?
You can do that on Meta and TikTok.
Like Facebook Manager? Is that what we're using?
Business manager.
Yeah, Business Manager.
Yeah. So to create audience.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you think about ROI and from an ad perspective, I would make sure that you're utilizing your email list to sell before you spend time or resources growing that email list or advertising. So just so they can see some actual ROI. So
like a benchmark.
Exactly. Yeah. So say your email address or your email list, you've used it to sell a digital product or a template or whatever it is that you're creating or selling, and you know that it has worked organically, then I would use those digital ads to scale that a little bit more and make sure that engine of the like organic to paid is running on your behalf before you're like trying to measure ROI of an ad, for example.
Right. And so like, you know, I'm thinking about creators, like we always have the boost post in Instagram. Are we hitting that button? Do we want to use it through Instagram? Like, is that the smartest way to do it, or is it better through the back end? Because it's so confusing, the business manager.
Yeah, I know. If Facebook does not care that they're confusing. They don't. No, they do not care.
They'll just take your money.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with using that boost post and, you know, the in-platform boosting opportunities. And I think if you don't understand, you know, advertising or, you know, conversion versus lead gen and those kind of things, stick with the in-app options. But if you want to go deeper and a bit more strategic, the back end of Facebook Business Manager just allows you to have a bit more control over these ad campaigns. So you can tell Facebook, I want to run a conversion campaign, and this is the goal, conversions or sales on my website. And so what Facebook will do is send your content to people who are more likely to actually click on an ad and convert from it, because it has all that data. But if you're like, I want awareness, or I want video plays, like it'll just be a bit more strategic with those things. And if you have audience lists to import, or you want to create lookalike audiences, things like that, then the back end of Facebook is the best place to set all that up. If you don't understand that, then, you know, the in-app options are just fine.
Right.
For most of our clients, and to be clear, we don't really work, like creators aren't our clients. So it's a little bit different for creators, but for the brands we work with, we almost always do have a boosting strategy for content, but we view that separate from ad campaigns. We view that as more like content amplification. So it's really, to Mitzi's point, more of a top of funnel activity. It's purely awareness. We're not relying on boosting content to drive sales.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we do, we're disappointed.
Boosted content versus an ad are two different things.
Yes, exactly. It like Meta might call a boosted post an ad, but that's just confusing. Like really, it's you're just you either want to use it strategically because that specific feed post you want more eyeballs on it, or you're seeing it perform organically really well, so you know it's resonating, and you just want to amplify that further and reach more people because you know people are reacting to it. And then you can use the engagement and the reach you get from boosted posts to retarget with ad campaigns as well. So in addition to that email lookalike audience, you can also target your social media engaged audience, which would include people you reach through boosts in your ad campaigns. So there's still benefit from it, but we view that as a separate activity. And then we're creating unique ad campaigns that have more of a middle to bottom funnel objective, like email list signups. We call those lead gen. You can use lead magnets in those to drive down the cost, because if there's more perceived value, then it's not going to cost as much to convert someone. And then there's conversions like buying a product or signing up for a course or things like that as well.
And for brands who are thinking about using some digital spend, is there kind of a base price that they should be spending monthly to see any return?
Well, there's minimums. Yeah. So I'd say what we know about Meta is typically you want to spend a minimum of $50 a day, which works out to $1,500 a month. Okay. On TikTok, the minimum for a single campaign is $600 a month. So that would be the baseline. So
you can't do less than $600.
No, you can't run a campaign with less than $600.
Right.
So
a
typically,
month, which is not bad.
Yeah. So if you're starting only on TikTok, or if you're starting only on Meta, those are the baselines. Or if you want to try both and test them against each other, then you basically want to have $2,000 or more to play with as a starting point per month.
And will people definitely see if their product is decent? Are they guaranteed to see some return?
No.
Okay.
Never.
Okay, so it's a risk.
Nothing in this life is guaranteed.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. But I mean, advertising is a strategy for sure. It's one that we use often for our e-com clients. It's not. It does come with a barrier to entry. I think, unfortunately, you need to know a bit about the advertising platforms in order to put your best foot forward and get that return on ad spend. There is a learning phase to all these ads too. So you start ads today. It doesn't mean you're going to get money coming in tomorrow. There is a 48-hour learning phase where these ads kind of got some rotation in them to kind of start being optimized. And even then, it's not always guaranteed that they are going to perform that great. So it does take a bit of time and intentional effort for that. So you've got to give yourself a runway of at least 3 to 6 months to really test and play and figure out if this is a strategy worth scaling. And right now it's actually it used to be much easier to get a great return on ad spend, especially on Meta. But these days it's actually a lot harder.
Because there's more data privacy restrictions from places like Apple, for example. People can opt out of advertising or sharing their data.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's made it harder.
And a lot of people did do that.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's harder to close the loop with your data. And so Meta doesn't learn as quickly and they don't have as much information. So that it's less sophisticated.
TikTok, it's working.
TikTok is working for different ways. TikTok is for us, we've seen it as a great tool for the top funnel. So traffic to your website, awareness, video plays, getting those eyeballs at the beginning. And what's really cool is if you have a multi-platform ad structure, you can use TikTok that would give you traffic to your website at a really good cost per click, and then retarget any traffic website visitors through other Meta conversion campaigns. That's a strategy. But then you got to factor in the cost of the traffic campaign on TikTok plus the cost of the conversion campaign on Meta to get your true cost per acquisition. But then even that, sometimes you lose some data in the process too. So,
and it depends on the creator too. Meta and TikTok may be the perfect place for them, but those are more interest-based audiences and targeting. And then Google, for example, and YouTube, it's more intent-based. So you're basing it more on what people are looking for already. So if you know for a fact that the content that you're producing or the course or the product is based on something that is in high demand, maybe Google is a better place to start because you can just basically be the top ranking result for people that are looking for that specific thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And for any creators that are listening and feel discouraged about like advertising, I want to go back even to like email and the power that it has, because if you spend money or invest your time to create a really compelling email list that brings a lot of value, and you're driving people to join that email list, that list and those emails you can nurture for an unlimited amount of time for free. I mean, the cost of creating the content will always exist, but you can scale that in so many different ways. And if you use a platform like Substack, which is open and people can interact with your content and people can recommend other Substacks that are like-minded, things like that, you can create like a peripheral effect around your newsletter as well. Or you can even use your newsletter to inform your social content, things like that. So to me, like if you're thinking about paid versus organic costs and driving your marketing, like there's so much value in an email list, and you own those emails. Like at the end of the day, like there's no algorithm. You don't have to pay to reach them. Like you have those emails and you can do whatever you need or want to do with them. And hopefully some of that includes nurturing and building relationships and bringing lots of value. So at the time that you're ready to sell something to them, that they're so ready to commit to it and it's an easy sell.
Right. And do you think there's a good way to, like, you see the cross-pollination or the collaboration on social, how people do that? Can you cross-pollinate email lists with brands and businesses? And what's some of the best ways to do that?
Yeah, one way to do that is by just curating great resources from other places as on your own for your email. So for example, if you see someone talking about something that relates to your audience, like pull that information, credit them like you would on social media, but pull that information into your newsletter and link out to their stuff. You can also pull in interesting products that are part of your process or things like that. But you can also then, beyond that, intentionally create relationships with other newsletters or other people that have an email platform. And that can either be to produce some sort of shared value for your audience, or it could just purely be cross-marketing or like cross-promotion. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're trading or paying for a spot in their newsletter to talk about yours and why it's valuable to their audience and vice versa. But there's lots of ways to collaborate through email the way that we do on social.
Yeah, sure. I like what you said about really nurture the audience. Maybe give yourself some runway, like 6 to 8 months, where you just build relationship and invest in them. And then when you do sell the product, it's instead of just like, hey, here's my email list and buy my course. Yeah. Because that feels very
transactional, salesy. No one wants to feel like they're being sold to. Right. Yeah. So even in any marketing, whether it's a big brand or a small brand, you do need to do some nurturing to kind of get people to understand like what it is that you bring value, like what kind of value you're bringing to the email subscriber. And I always think when I think about emails for even our clients, we try to center the subscriber and not the brand or the person that's sending the email. So if I'm sending out an email to my list, it's not an email about me, it's an email about them and what they would want or need. And I'm so glad you brought up curating, because if you're listening and you're like, I don't know how to write an email, do not underestimate the value of curating resources and links. I think in all of our client emails, the sections where it's like linking out to different articles or books or tools or things like that gets so much activity. Yeah. And you can really bring a lot of value to someone by saving them time and sharing things that are interesting that you're seeing that make sense for your audience. So nice. I think curating is such an underutilized element of creating content. Yeah. And you likely have all those links somewhere. It's like you were probably reading something or exactly. Saw a post that you liked that inspired you or whatever it is. And it's just like a great
find things
way
that bring value to you and share that with your audience.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
This has been so good, guys.
Awesome.
You have dropped some heat. And then, so people that want to learn more about you guys, how can we find you?
Yeah, arcadearcade.ca for the business, but also find us on Instagram and TikTok. I'm more active on LinkedIn, but
it's at Hello Arcade on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to see the agency side, I'm at MMMITZI or ZI if you're in America on
and
Instagram.
I'm Mike. Our handles look similar.
It's MMMIIIKE.
Yes.
All those M's.
We got really common names, I guess.
And then you also have a podcast.
Yeah.
We do.
We're in a kind of a phase of transition for our podcast. So we have a podcast called Waves, and it's been an interview-based podcast. It's all around marketing and trends and behaviors and things like that. We've been doing that for about 5 years, but we're just in the process of reshaping it, doing it differently. It's just going to be Mitzi and I
following the trends.
Yeah. We're going to shoot it live, like in person with a few different camera angles like this. Yeah. And it's going to shift away from interview based to just us being the host and talking about what we're seeing.
But check out our other podcast, Tea for Lunch, which we go live every Thursday on Instagram for Hello Arcade. Or you can catch a replay every Friday on all podcast providers called Tea for Lunch. It's like a little 15-minute show about pop culture, marketing, things that we're seeing. And
I love that pop culture.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a mix of different people on our team every week. But you get an inside scoop to what we're looking at and watching. And then I also have my own podcast.
Okay, wow.
A separate one. I got to plug. It's called Easy Reads. You can find it at Easy Reads Pod on Instagram or TikTok. And if you're into just like some light reading, some light fiction reading currently, it's a little podcast book club.
Awesome.
And then we've been talking about Scan Club, scanclub.substack.com.
All right. Well, you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for depositing that into our community.
This was fun.
Hope you guys, it was fun. I hope you guys liked it. Thanks to our guests, Mike and Mitzi, for joining us today. You guys make sure you just sign up for SoCali.org as well for our email and check out the membership, because we are dropping incredible mentors like this who are bringing value behind the scenes, deeper and stronger to you to help you grow as a creator. Once again, we want to empower you, connect you into all the great things for your life. And so thanks again, Mike and Mitzi, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
See ya.